Hey guys, it's Paul here. Just going to give you a quick run through on how to build a rhythm patch using the HD Pro from Line 6. This only came out about a month ago. I've only had it for around a week and a half, so I'm still kind of figuring some things out with it, and I'm by no means an expert. But hopefully you should get a good idea of how this thing works and how quickly you can build a really good, usable guitar tone in as few steps as possible. If you have any questions about anything, just put it in the comments section and I'll try my best to answer you, but it should all be quite apparent, and I'll obviously explain things as I go and do them. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and pick the Fireball model, which is a kind of good basis to build the tone on, and straight off the bat it's kind of it's a bit hair metal, kind of fuzzy and woolly. So if we take the put the mic on off axis, and that kind of naturally tidies up some of the top end of it. And then if we take some of the bass off, bring the mids in a bit too. So yeah, that's sounding pretty good. There's a whole bunch of new controls that arrived in version 1.3 that relate to power amp characteristics, and I'm not going to sort of go into exactly what they do. You can find all of that stuff online, but again, it's pretty obvious as to what's going on. So if you were to bring the master volume down, it's going to drive the power amp less hard. Obviously you need to bring the volume up to compensate for that, but you should end up with a tighter bottom end. Which is already sounding better. If you want to kind of rein that in a bit more, I would say just bring the sag down. Hum, I don't really know what that does, so yeah. Bias is to do with how hot or not hot you run your power amp tubes. So a higher setting is going to give you something that's a lot more saturated and cranked, and you sort of get a more interesting distortion, I guess, but it's also a little bit harder to control. For anything techie or proggy, you're just going to want to run that like cold, pretty much. And the bias excursion setting doesn't really do anything when it's set that low anyway. So with the bias all the way down, you should have a tighter rhythm sound. So that's sounding pretty cool. You can turn your early reflections off if you want to just keep it a nice dry, tight sound. That's pretty much the only thing I ever have that set to anyway. So if we put some noise gating in just to get rid of hiss and hum and goodness knows what else. That's pretty spot on. Yeah, the drive is good there as well, that's fine. Now it's kind of the done thing to add a little bit of pre-tone shaping, preamp tone shaping. It's just another way to kind of tighten up the bottom end, especially in low tunings if you're using 7 and 8 strings and stuff. And a really good model for that is the Tube Screamer. So again, if you can keep the drive down really low. So right away, it's brought out the attack sound. It's made it a lot more aggressive, given it a bit of bite. If you find that you need to get even more tightness out of the bottom end, then obviously you can roll that off at this point. Obviously you want to be careful not to take too much off, because when you play higher, it's going to sound a bit thin and crappy, and you don't really want that. But for now that sounds pretty good. If you're finding the tones a little bit boxy, you can obviously just whack in some EQ after the amp. The best way to sort of identify the problem area in the sound is if you put your Q and gain to maximum, and then while you play, and you can sort of really home in on the, where that sort of nasty boxy resonance is coming from, and then you can either cut it out completely, or I find it's good to leave a little bit in. It's all part of the character of the cabinet and of the amp and stuff, so you don't want to kind of scoop everything out of it, or it's going to sound really thin and it won't really stand up in a mix. Then the last thing you can do, if you want, is you can put another gate. This is the nice thing about the new effect system on the HD, is if you want another gate, you can just populate an empty block with another noise gate. That's something that Axe Effects users will be used to, or anyone that's done their tone building in sequences, using amplitude or pod farm elements or anything like that. But it just kind of adds just that extra little bit of tightness to your tone. Whoops. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I don't really know what I'm doing there, but that's how quick you can sort of construct a tone. You don't need to do a lot of mucking around before the amp. I mean, the tube screamer is really kind of optional, but it does really make a difference. So that should give you an idea of how quickly you can build something, and how the workflow of the HD Pro is arranged. If you wanted to split that into a dual tone setup, it'd be very quick. Now you've got 2 amps. You can also position then, effects on each signal path. I won't really go into that now because I haven't planned for it, but you can sort of imagine the kind of effects that you could build with that, and hopefully I'll be able to go over some of those in another video. But yeah, that's kind of how you do that. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments section, as I said. And yeah, I hope this has been useful to you guys. See you next time.